These are technological, evolutionary things, just like somebody with Parkinson's disease has a chip in his head that can have software uploaded to it. He's not a fucking transhumanist. He's just a goddamn patient that has a fucking thing in his head that he needs it for. And this will be the same thing that happens.
We have a Florida family who are really pioneers in a brave new world. They have volunteered to be the first ever to have microchip identification devices implanted into their body.
RFID is a technology that uses tiny computer chips the size of a grain of sand or even smaller, hooked up to miniature antennas to transmit information about items at a distance. The latest technology for identifying people at the point of sale, for identifying people when they make purchases, is actually the implantable chip that you can actually embed directly into human flesh. It's a tiny glass capsule about the size of a grain of rice. It contains an RFID computer chip with a coiled antenna, and it can transmit information also at a distance.
And what are the future applications of this? I mean, I presume it'll be able to do more things than just open your car door or your front door or log onto your computer.
Yeah, there's the common theme is access control, but some people are matching profiles to it. So you get in your front door, but then like a home automation system knows that it's you and sets lighting and music and that kind of preference.
In West Palm Beach, Florida, 100 elderly men and women diagnosed with Alzheimer's are now walking around with microchips embedded under their skin, and more are on the waiting list. Alzheimer's Community Care offers this service for free.
You've got a vulnerable person that is not always able to define what's wrong with them. And when you go into an emergency room, efficiency and effectiveness is the most important way of getting good treatment.
A New Jersey policeman says he's alive today thanks to a medical ID chip implanted in his arm.
Sometime in the next century, because computer chips are getting smaller and faster, and eventually the time will come when a child is implanted with a little chip back here and will learn to control the chip in the same way that you learn to control your bodily functions and your voice and your movements, so that not only can you, right now my mind is telling my body to talk, and it's supplying my mouth with the words that I'm giving to you, and the mind could also learn to say to the chip, go to a certain web page, download some information, and supply it to the inside of my eyeball.
You believe that you're going to be actually able to tell your mind through a chip to provide you with information that you can then speak. So on this program, this would be great for me. You put a little chip in there, and if I didn't know something, I could say to the chip, would I have to say it out loud or just think it?
Either way.
I could just think it, give me an answer.
Our chip is a tiny miniaturized RFID, or radio frequency identification microchip. It's 11 millimeters by 1 millimeter. It's about the size of a grain of rice.
Well, we've got one sitting there by a penny to give us a little perspective of the size. Very
Correct.
Tiny. You implant it under the skin how?
It gets injected, just like getting a shot of penicillin or any medicine that you would get in a doctor's office. It goes in the upper right arm, which is the area that our physicians have chosen for ease of access as well as biocompatibility.
All right. Show me how this works, because you've got a scanner here, and you have a chip implanted. Is it underneath your right arm?
It's in the right arm. You power up a scanner, and you simply scan the arm, and once you scan the arm, you'll see that the identification information...
And on the laptop here you have it hooked up to, it says some number, but that doesn't tell me anything about your health condition now. From that number, they access your health records.
Right, that's correct. If you go into further detail on the database about Scott Silverman, it'll have my driver's license information, it'll have medical information, it'll have financial information, and it'll have security information for ingress and egress into facilities.
We build sailboats for your use. You don't have to come up to Fresco and say, can I use a sailboat this Sunday? I say, there's 50 people before you. We build more than required, so you can take it out yourself. The only difference is your sailboat is monitored by satellite. In case there's fire at sea, we know where to go to get you. Not Big Brother watching you. I'm talking about safety for your own good.
All right, you hear the sound of the background, people saying, Big Brother, too much information, a little scary. How do you respond to that?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I used to get that question a lot 2 years ago. Today, we've gotten it a lot less. In fact, the Attorney General of Mexico and some of his staff have received this chip for security purposes, and when the acceptance rate of the product goes up significantly like it has, some of the privacy concerns go down.
I mean, okay, so the computer chips, glasses are tools.
Sure, but all of these are external. The computer should be in you, and that's what frightens me. Scientists tell us that it is absolutely true and absolutely possible for a human being to have a chip embedded in their system and to have many, many things appear in their mind upon command.
So I'm going to stop the conversation as far as this goes.
Okay.
These are not relevant points.
How, but it is relevant to debate something. I mean, how it's not relevant to discuss something?
We educate children to be able to relate to one another, to speak, communicate with a referential language. That means today, I believe most of you have been brought up to believe that everyone should have a right to their own opinion. Isn't that true? Most of you? Okay. Let's say you live across the street from me, and I see 10 guys coming out of your apartment. I can have all kinds of opinions, right? You can be a language instructor, a ballet instructor, but if you give everybody the right to their own opinion, you're generating a lot of new problems.
The word Fabianism comes from the Fabian Society, which was formed in England in 1884. The Fabian Society was named after a Roman general by the name of Quintus Fabius. And he was famous in history for defeating his enemy not by beating him on the battlefield, but by wearing him down in delaying tactics. In other words, he would wear his enemy down by refusing to make a frontal engagement. The Fabians selected him as their symbol or the symbolic name on purpose. They objected to the Leninists, not on the basis of their goals of collectivism, because they agreed with that. They were saying to the Leninists, you people are stupid, you're going about it in the wrong way. You're trying to conquer the world and make a new world order based on the model of collectivism through force and violence and bloodshed and quick revolution. That's the wrong way, they said. The proper way is patient gradualism. They said, let's follow the motto or the tactics of Quintus Fabius and delay so there's no confrontation, and drag it out over a long period of time, and instead of confronting your enemy head on, we will infiltrate his institutions. We will move our people into his government agencies, into his educational institutions, and into his charitable organizations, into his corporations, and we'll gradually convert the world. Now, who are the Fabians? Well, when they were formed, of course, there were such well-known people as Arnold Toynbee, the famous historian, George Bernard Shaw, H.G. Wells.
Wells' last book of prophecy was the shape of things to come. His final vision was dark but hopeful, full of untold violence, but also the possibility of enlightenment and change. Writing in 1933, Wells predicted an apocalyptic world war.
All the cities and all the infrastructures and everything are destroyed, and so what you're going to get are little pockets of surviving humanity. Feudal societies, basically, enslaving their people.
But out of this, Wells prophesied a new consciousness would emerge, spearheaded by a visionary elite that would take control of the weapons of war and create a world state.
These airmen come and they stop this fighting. I mean, they're able to pacify the people and to lead them, literally, to a new world where they build a new state of technological wonders.
By the middle of the 21st century, Wells envisioned a peaceful world, liberated from old hatreds and adorned with scientific marvels.
This man's not sleeping. He's dead. Dead in his world, dead with him, and a new world beginning.
Plato described the whole technique. Today we call it a form of indoctrination, predictive programming. Which means that through fiction, or through when you're enjoying yourself, through being entertained, that when you're under the cover, your sensor part of your mind is not working. And when it's not working, you're unaware that you're being downloaded with a computer. And so all the little emotional techniques that you use, and you're identifying with the hero or the female with the heroine, and there's people in between these days, and all that kind of stuff. Once you start identifying with the characters, they've got you, because they can take you anywhere, no matter what that character does, because as long as you identify this much with them, they can take you that much.
For now, we have to put the world in order. It will be a long and complicated struggle, but we have the unity of a common order and a common knowledge. This is how I conceive our plan of operations. First, the roundup of brigands. At last, dismal vestige of ancient predatory soldiery. The last would-be conquerors. Then settle. Organize. Advance. This zone, then that. And at last, wings over the world. And the new world begins.
Anyway, I'm getting tired though, guys. If anyone has any singular questions or anything else they want to say,
I mean, I'm discussing something, how that can be irrelevant towards the transition to...
I've been working with the technocrats incorporated here in America, and I see in his latest lecture, Jacques Fresco mentions them briefly and says that their scope is too limited. I would agree with that. I gotta say though, in general, if the Zeitgeist movement really starts to pick up, I guarantee you the technocrats will be behind you. I mean, they're not continentalists, but that's not what their minds really are. That's just old plans from the 1920s where they really didn't have that much form of communication with other countries or whatever.
Centuries ago, in primitive times, before the dawn of civilization, there were things that would be inconceivable to us today. Such things as poverty.
The movie industry is there to indoctrinate you into possibilities which you swallow as possibilities, and then they actually come out in reality. This technique has been used very effectively since the BBC, in fact, first started up as a radio station for World War I.
Although there was actually land and food in abundance, some starved, because unlike our perfect society, they were unable or unwilling to balance population to consumption.
We do a survey of what the carrying capacity of the Earth is, and that tells us how many people the Earth can support. If you exceed that, you're going to have malnutrition, disease, and territorial disputes. Do you understand that? So many acres can support so many people. If you put more than what the ground can support, you're going to have disease, malnutrition, and problems.
So how do you make sure that you don't exceed the limits of the resources?
Well, the survey committee tells us how many hospitals we need.
Educate people.
They have to be educated.
But is it going to be done by birth control or euthanasia?
You have to educate people.
Right, well, educating people doesn't stop people from producing people. There's lots of them doesn't that big.
We show them a film called Dynamic Equilibrium in Nature. If you produce more people than land can support, these are the problems you're going to have. Now, if they don't seem to understand that, that's another problem.